TS is asking, is there a way to check to see if the ADX has been below 20 for the past 8 bars and then identify when it rises above 25? All right, yeah, take a look at that. So let me start a new logic template here. All right, let me get the ADX on my chart. Okay, there we go. So here's our ADX. So yeah, we have a nice section here where it's below 20, and so the blue line here is identifying 20, and then our white line is identifying the 25 level. All right, well, so the first thing we'll need is to identify when that ADX is below 20. And so we need the threshold, right? We want to identify when the ADX is below the 20 threshold level. So let's grab a threshold solver here. There. And so let's change our indicator input to the ADX. There's our ADX. And of course, remember, if you're using a different period, change the period. So the ADX only has one plot, so that's already selected for us there. And so we're going to put in here the 20 level that we're looking for. And we're actually going to put that in twice. And then, so let's see, let's generate, I guess we'll generate a long signal when that happens. So let's do this. Let's do the opposite. So we'll do 80 and 80 and then put 20 and 20 down here. And currently with the threshold solver, threshold C needs to be a value in the middle, right? So right now 0 is less than 20, so that will not work. So we need a number between 80 and 20. So all the values are in descending order. So I'm just going to put 50 in there, right? That's right in the middle there. All right, so now for the outputs, I'm going to do this, right? So we want to know, so we're going to generate a long output when that ADX is below 20, right? Or if the ADX, is greater than 80, we'll generate a short output. Okay, so there we go. We can see, right, we're getting a long output whenever that ADX is below 20 now. And let's see if it ever goes to 80. Yeah, sure doesn't seem like it. So I guess, yeah, with the ADX, 80 is a little high, but that's okay. All right, so now we need to identify when we have at least 8 bars where the ADX is below 20. And we might get a little variety if I switch over to a 1-minute chart. There. Okay. There. All right, so to identify that we have at least 8 bars there, let's use a look back node to do that. All right. So with the look back node, we're not going to use the displacement. We're going to set that to 0. And our look back period is going to be 8. We want 8 bars below 20. And now the mode is we're looking for the minimum value, or just, I guess another way of saying it is we want a minimum of 8 bars in a row where it's below 20, right? There. I somehow switched that to max, put that back to min. There. So here, if we kind of zoom in here a little bit, you'll notice, right, the first bar is there. So the first 7 bars, right, there's no output. But once we get to the 8th bar, now we generate an output there. So now the next thing we need to do is identify, right, that crossover of the 25. Right, we'll identify that little crossover there. So to do that, let's grab a crossover solver. All right, that should make sense. We're looking for the ADX to cross over 25. All right, so input A, right, that's going to be our ADX indicator. So let's plug that in. There we go. Click OK. And for input B, well, that's not an indicator. That's the 25 level. That's the 25 level. So, you know, a value of 25, right, is going to be a fixed value, right? That 25 level is a fixed value. So we're going to set the input type to fixed value, and then we can put in the 25 level that we're looking for. Right? And there we have it. So let's see here. Oh, you notice that short output there? So why do I have a short output there? You know, if you look at the ADX, it hasn't crossed down yet, right? Well, that's because my BloodHound, if I open up BloodHound here, let's go to indicators. Yeah, let's see. My BloodHound has the calculate set to on price change from the previous question. So let's move this back to on bar close. There we go. Okay, there we go. And now that that bar has closed, there we go. So now the ADX is crossed back down. So with this crossover solver, right, we're only interested in the ADX crossing above the 25, right? We're not really interested in the ADX crossing below 25. So what I can do is in the evaluate, I can eliminate those short signals when the ADX crosses down below 25. Right? I can eliminate that by saying long only. Right? So I want to evaluate the long only output. And there we have it. So now only when the ADX crosses up above 25, we get a long output. And you can see whenever the ADX crosses down below, no short output. So there. So now we need to combine, right, our detection of the ADX below 20 and combine it with the crossover. And you can see that there's a few bars here in between, right? There's some bars in between. There's this gap between when that happens. So if we grab an AND node, and if we connect everything up like this, right, we're going to get nothing because there's this gap between those two conditions, right? The ADX being below 20 and the ADX crossing 25. There's this, gap between those conditions, right? There's a couple of bars there. So what we need to do is, right, this back here, that needs to be extended forward until we get our crossover condition there. And so to do that, we can use a signal extender to do that. Right. So, we don't know how many bars it's going to take for that ADX to go from 20 and crossing the 25. But I would guess that probably at least 5 bars should be enough. If not, maybe increase it to 7 bars so we can give the ADX 7 bars to move from 20 up to 25, if necessary. But I would think that 5 is probably plenty to bridge that gap, right, between the ADX at 20 to getting to 25 there. And that should be 5 bars is probably plenty. And now the next thing that we need to do is we should now, actually, let me back up here. Yeah. So you'll notice that sometimes we're going to get a few bars here where this signal has been extended past the crossover, right? So the crossover occurred right here. And let me just put a little arrow there. So there's the bar the crossover occurs. And we still have an output for 2 bars past that crossover, right? So it's good technique to eliminate those 2 extra signals after the crossover occurs, right? We should eliminate those right there. And let me, right there. So we should eliminate those 2 extra long signals there. And the way we can do that, right, is we can use this crossover signal, right? So when we get this crossover signal, we can use this crossover signal to turn off the signal extender, right? You'll notice the signal extender has a reset connection right there, right? So if I connect our crossover solver into the reset, now if we look at the chart, well, look, actually the signal extender turned off on the crossover bar. So the signal extender was turned off a little too soon. So what we need to do is delay our crossover signal by 1 bar. And we can do that using a look back node here. There. So what's doing that delay here? Let's take a look at things here, right? So we're looking at the crossover solver right now, right? Lines up with our arrow and the indicator crossing. Now if we look at our look back node, right, we can see the crossover signal was shifted forward 1 bar, right? So it was delayed 1 bar or shifted forward on the chart by 1 bar. So shifting that forward, now when we look at the signal extender, so now our ADX, being below the 20 for 8 bars, now that condition is being extended forward until our ADX crosses 25. And so now if we, let's back up a little bit here. So now if we connect this in to the AND node, now we actually get our signal there. There's our crossover signal, right? And if we look back here, right, there's a crossover, but we can see the ADX did not go below 20 here. There's that 20 level. Here we go. So here's another spot. So we can see the ADX is below 20 for several bars, and then when it crosses 25, then we get our little signal there. All right. So there we have it. So this was only, generated for just the ADX going below 20. So I began to set up the threshold solver so that we could get a signal if the ADX went up to 80 and then cross down a level here. But I think, now that I think about it, the ADX, I don't think works that way. Let's see here. Yeah, so the ADX is basically detecting kind of consolidation here a little bit. And whenever the market starts to move in a trend direction, the ADX rises there. So probably what's wanted is, right, instead of actually getting a long signal, because let's scroll back here. Yeah, right, sometimes if the market's trending downward, right, you don't want a long signal for the market trending downwards necessarily. So, so this looks like basically a non-directional condition, right? Because the ADX is non-directional, right? The ADX moves higher on an uptrend and a downtrend, right? It's non-directional. So we should make some adjustments here so that we get both a long and a short signal when this condition happens. That way it's a non-directional condition. It's just telling you that a trend, has been established. So let me adjust some settings here. All right. So our threshold solver, I'm going to set the short output the same as the long output, right? So you can see the long output and the short output are both set the same. So we want to identify when the ADX is less than 20. So there we go. We're getting a long and a short there. Okay, and let's see what else. Let's check our signal. Yeah, let's check our signal extender. All right, so our signal extender, we can see we're now getting a long and a short output for the signal extender. However, we're getting 2 extra short outputs there, right? We're getting 2 extra bars with a short output there. And that's because our crossover, right? Our crossover is only giving us a long output only. So let's see. Yeah, so we have to readjust this. So the evaluate, we're going to have to do set our evaluate back to both. So we want to evaluate both. And, well, actually, let me see. I think I might have to take that back. Actually, no, that's okay. Yeah. So you'll notice, right, we're getting a long and a short output from our crossover solver when that ADX crosses above 25 and below 25. So when it crosses below 25, right, that's just going to be ignored because obviously the indicator was not less than 20, right? So this cross down, just gets ignored. It's not going to affect anything with the system there. So now if we look at our signal extender here, there. So where I had marked those 2 extra short outputs, those are now gone, right? So there we have it. As soon as our ADX crossed above 25 there, right? There's our little cross up, right? The signal extender turned off, and we cleaned up the shorts there. So now, if I take a look at the AND node, and let me connect our crossover back in, and there we go. There we have it. All right, so there's a long and a short condition there, identifying that a trend has been established. Let's take a look at that other one. Yep, there we go. So there's another one right there. Yeah. So TS is just stating he usually combines the ADX with the DMI, right, to look at the DI plus and DI minus, right. So yeah, so this long and short output here just needs to be combined with some other directional conditions, or some other directional indicator or directional conditions, and then that extra additional condition will then convert this long and short into either a long only or short only. Yeah, so TS, if you take a look, let's go back to our training workshop page here. Right, so from support, the support menu, training workshops, right there. So from there, I can type in this little search box here. I can type in the DMI indicator there, hit search, and there you go. You'll see that brings up the Shark Indicators channel on YouTube. And yeah, you'll see over here in the little search box, right, it has the DMI little indicator search, and then you'll find some various workshops here. So let's see, BloodHound workshop, breakout above a signal bar. I wonder. Let's take a look here. Let's see. So this incorporates the DM indicator. Probably some better topics here. Yeah, so here you go. Here's one that utilizes the DI trend. Take a look at that one. Yeah, so here you go. So this topic here is analyzing the DI plus, being above the DI minus for a long situation, and the DI plus must cross above the DI minus. Yeah, so you'll find some BloodHound workshop topics, with various kind of questions used or asked using the DM indicator and the DI plus and DI minus plot lines there. Yeah, there's a bunch of topics with that indicator in it. There we go. Here's a very simple one. So DI crossover with the DI above 20. So there you go. So yeah, the DIs crossing each other, but they're above 20. Lots of ways to analyze those DI lines there. So, all right. Well, it looks like that kind of does it for TS's question there.